Wusstest du, dass Zehntausende deutsche Unternehmen bereits Shopify nutzen? Von innovativen Start-ups bis hin zu Familienunternehmen mit langer Tradition? Die Commerce-Plattform Shopify revolutioniert Millionen von Unternehmen weltweit. Mit Shopify kannst du Produkte über beliebige Kanäle verkaufen. Ob persönliches POS-System oder umfassende E-Commerce-Plattform. Auch Social Media und Marktplätze wie Facebook, Instagram und eBay werden unterstützt. Dank der ständig wachsenden Auswahl innovativer Funktionen und des zuverlässigen technischen Supports ist es ganz einfach, dein Business mit Shopify aufzubauen. Ob Produktpräsentation oder Bestell- und Zahlungsabwicklung. Shopify bietet alles, was du für die Verwaltung deines Business brauchst. So kannst du dich ganz auf dein Business konzentrieren. Shopify kostenlos ausprobieren und dein Business voranbringen. Shopify.de/try besuchen. Also Shopify.de/try. Made for Germany. Powered by Shopify.
Every Nigerian must be instrumental to the growth and development of our nation through the use of innovative energy and idea to lead and initiate policies that will sustain the economy and enhance good governance. With all the financial turmoil facing the world, it has become pertinent for exchange of new ideas that will enhance good governance. Please subscribe to our channels, listen to our messages and engage with us. With your support, we can transform the lives of all Nigerians. Welcome to the Season 2 of the NESG Radio.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the NESG Radio. The World Food Safety Day will be on the 7th of June this year. As a result, we are going to be discussing issues surrounding food safety. With us today, we have Mr. Olajire Afiz Olaiya. He is the managing partner of ACE Strategy and Consults Limited, and also a senior associate with the Global Vaccine Delivery of Clinton Health Access Initiative. You are welcome, Mr. Olaiya.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so we'll be discussing issues surrounding how we can prioritize citizens' public health as we advance food safety in Nigeria. Mr. Olaiya, please, what are the laws regarding selling contaminated food in Nigeria?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question around the laws guiding. So in Nigeria, I think the availability of law has never been the problem. We have a series of laws guiding the sales of food contamination. We have some laws dated as back as 1917 to know since how long Nigeria has seen all of this as a priority. We have the public health laws that they now call the Public Health Ordinance Act that was enacted in 1917. The Standard Organization of Nigeria had their decree that they did since as back as 1971. We have some from the Food and Drug Act that has dated back to 1974. So we have a series of those laws, but the real one that really embodied sales of contaminated food was the one that was done in 1993, which was the Food, Drug and Related Products Decree, which birthed the institution of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, that was formerly the CDPC, to detail the right channel to actually explain or more of a report when you notice a contamination or availability of what is not supposed to be in your food item in it. So we have a series of those laws, and this is like the top one and the most recent one that is really guiding the food safety and more of the sales of contaminated food in Nigeria. Over.
All right. Thank you, sir, for that very explanatory remarks. So, a lot of the times you find citizens saying that they found some sort of foreign objects in their food, but a lot of people don't know how to go about it. What should I do, for instance, if I find a foreign object in my food that ought not to be there?
Yeah, thanks. And I'll build up on my last response where I mentioned the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. I think that's their mandate. When a citizen or anyone, a consumer, find a foreign object in the food, the first thing in their flow chart is for you to stop eating the food. Then the next one is to report back to the person that made it or the company. And the whole essence of doing this is so that they could check the batch and they could see how far the food could have been supplied into the community. More of tracing back the value chain. Then after that, you report it to the FCCPC that I earlier mentioned to check if the food has been circulated to the country and how they could immediately initiate tracing of how far the food has gone. From that point, they take it up with whoever the producer is and try to start their investigation to determine the next course of action, depending on the severity of what the contamination might have caused. Over.
All right. Thank you, sir. At least we're sure that our audience has, they would have a better understanding of how to report, cases of contaminated food now. But building up on that, what actually is the need for a food and drug safety policy?
Yeah, the food and drug safety policy is very important. And it's very important in any country to regulate production, consumption, packaging, and distribution of food. And part of the food and drug safety policy, part of what was supposed to be the mission for having those policy is as well to reduce hunger and general well-being of Nigeria. So more of the food and drug safety is on two sides. The priority here is to ensure that we have adequate food in the country and in the community at large, to ensure that at every point in time, every household has what to eat. And that's where our food policy goes as far as supporting the farmers, ensuring that we have adequate food, thinking about the storage. But the second layer to that, which is what we'll be building on the point I made about storage, is that in the right storage or at the handling or the manufacturing or the processing or the sealing, in terms of the entire supply chain of the food, will have led to some contamination. So it is now, we are shifting our focus from just availability of food item, but more on ensuring that the food items we have has the right quantity of nutrients. And in terms of safety, that's we don't have any toxin in those food at every time. So from the quantification to the procurement to the distribution of these food items to the population, we are ensuring that we have the right quantity of food at the right place in its right state. That right state is where we think about being safe for consumption. I think that's the easiest word. Being in the right state means that it is safe for consumption and it's in the right condition where anyone can consume it without any adverse effects. Over.
Oh, thank you very much, sir, for that explanation. I believe we all now see the essence and importance of having a food and drug safety policy. Presently, research has shown that there are rising cases of, rising cases of food poisoning, cancer, non-cardiovascular diseases, organ failure and all that. Is there a link between, weak enforcement of food and drug safety policy, and inappropriate food safety practices with this, increase in food poisoning and cancer cases that we have?
Absolutely. We have, the link is very strong and very obvious for everyone to see. We have a lot of researches that has been done. I did one during my first degree where we bought some food on the roadside and we subjected them to some chemical and biochemical tests, and we actually saw a lot of heavy metal content in them. And we all know the implication of taking heavy metal. We know the direct relationship between this and cancer and some organ failure. So we have that. We also have to realize that in Nigeria, where I am, it's very difficult to admit that we are lowering the already low bar. So the bar was low before. Now we are lowering it more. Because I remember a few years ago, we have people that are trying to enforce the food and drug safety policy by going from restaurant to restaurant, from house to house, to take samples of food and also from the people handling the food to ensure that we are actually not trusting what we are going to consume in the hands of people that are not paying attention to their self-hygiene, to their personal hygiene, or to their overall health. So, but because of the weak enforcement of these food policy practices, we have a lot of foods that go around. There are no regulatory bodies to actually ensure that before you could be a caterer to cook for a party, you have actually been certified that you don't have any serious illnesses like tuberculosis and what have you. And because of this weak regulation, it's so sad that the people that bear the consequences of are the last mile, which are the consumers of these food items, that end up eating them. And that's why we now have a very high prevalence of food poisoning like the normal thing. One of the easiest drugs that you see on the counter, people buying, everybody having it in their bag. You see loperamide, you see flagyl, you see people, everybody suffering from one food poisoning disease or the other. In as much as skin discoloration, these are part of things people suffer because of all this negligence in enforcing all of these laws. So for sure, there's a direct link between this weak enforcement and what we see in the hospital. Sadly, the first one should have been the preventive approach to ensure that we're actually preventing some of this problem before we get there. But we are not preventing it now. And we all know that the curative approach is always very expensive on the cost side, both the direct and indirect cost, and also on the chances of survival for whoever come down with such illnesses. Over.
Oh, thank you, sir. As a food safety expert, I'm sure you love food. So on a lighter note, if you were some type of food, what type of food would you be?
Yeah, I think my preference for food has always been food items that I have to cook at a very high temperature.
Okay.
And that's why I go for more of rice, and there are some foods I don't take. So while I can take zobo, you won't see me take kunu, because kunu is not cooked, while zobo is cooked. So I pay attention to all of those to ensure, and also I try not to avoid anything roadside food. So my preference has always been home-made food items that is cooked at very high temperature.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. So let's diversify a bit. Everybody obviously, all experts know that the informal sector plays a huge role in the food value chain, because we have a lot of food hawkers, roadside food sellers, and bukaterias. We would like to know, how do we ensure an effective food traceability and food risks surveillance system, for the good health of, the citizens of Nigeria?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's exciting to see how we are bringing in the informal sector, because to me, they play the most important part in the food value chain in the country and in the world at large, because they are the closest to the community. They are the closest to people, to low-income earners, because some of these informal sectors are the ones that you could access from them even on credit. So it's very critical to engage them. I think what is missing is the coordination. Which is, in those days, you cannot even be a food vendor without having some registration with an association within your community, whereby once there is the problem with the food or with an household, we can always link it to whoever sold the food. But now the situation has gone so bad that everybody can just decide to say, I do this kitchen today, I do this tomorrow. And there is really no proper check on the preparation method, the preparation environment, as well as the health and safety of whoever is preparing the food. So, and until we are very deliberate about bringing all these people together, ensuring we are assigning some unique registration number to them, and consistently engaging them and sponsoring some pre-training for them to attend. Because sometimes it's not about, I don't think any of them want to be wicked by preparing food that will affect the livelihood of people that they serve. Is more of non-awareness of information. In my little capacity, I've been involved in people who call themselves caterers. They make food, they sell it to community, and while they are preparing the food, you will see them say, when we add these particular items to the meat, it gets softer very fast. Then when you go deeper and you try to deep dive to understand what is the constituent of what they are adding to the food, you actually realize that this thing, the reaction that makes the meat softer will not stop at the meat. Even after consumption, it has some effect on the intestine of whoever consumes such food. And that's where we see a lot of people say they wake up and they notice their urine has turned green, has turned yellow, and all of that. So I think first and foremost is to strengthen that coordination structure to ensure that everyone is identified by a unique identity, and we can always trace and engage them frequently to keep them updated, upskill them if necessary, and continue to provide feedback to them on how better they could do things. Over.
All right. Thank you, sir. Earlier, you mentioned your love for foods that you have to cook at very high temperatures. So, in light of this, can you shed more light on how poor food safety practices in abattoirs, slaughter slabs, can have a detrimental effect on the health of citizens?
That's a very interesting question to me. Maybe because one, my wife is a veterinary doctor, and I do follow her to abattoir and slaughter slab. And what we see there is an eyesore, like it's very bad. So for the food safety at abattoir and slaughter slab, it contributes majorly to the degeneration in our health. And that's because everything starts from even burning of the cow. You see people burn cow with tire. And in doing that, by the time you are burning cows with tire, you are already leaving some unhealthy residue on the hides. I mean the skin of the cow. And this is what people now sell. We all know the impact of consumption of rubber. That's one of the major causes of cancer. But we are not ready for this conversation because we've seen systems where people build a lot of modern infrastructure to ensure that there is a way we could burn our cow without necessarily exposing it to chemicals as dangerous as burning them with tires, which is what you see in almost all the abattoirs I've visited. But because of the long certification and also a lot of bureaucratic process to ensure that people are mandated to use those LD slaughter slab and abattoir, where the standard operating procedures for slaughtering the meat and processing it is being in place. And because of the poor sanctions that are not in place, we don't have any sanctions in place for all these abattoirs where all these unhealthy practices are performed. Then everything goes, and all these things unfortunately end up on our table in our households. We have that. There is also the waste disposal, which is one of the biggest problems at the abattoir. You see very poor waste disposal. A lot of all these abattoirs do not even have good quality water to clean the meat. They fetch this water from something as bad as gutter. And that's what you see they use to process the food, process the meat, and that's where it grows. There are also some testing that cow need to be subjected to. Because some studies have shown, at least for my wife's first degree, the study has shown that a cow that has tuberculosis, if such cow, if the lungs is being consumed, the people that actually consume it are more at risk of also having the tuberculosis. Now the question is, how many of us will even identify a cow that has tuberculosis? Which is why part of this standard safety guideline in the policy states that every abattoir must have a veterinary doctor who serves as a meat inspection officer to inspect the meat before they are slaughtered and after they are slaughtered. Sadly, we don't have a lot of that. We have it on theory, but it is not very practical. So much of this, there are some guidelines that show as much as meat shouldn't touch the floor when you want to slaughter it. There should be what you have on the ground. We have a lot of dangerous flies flying around and perching on all of these food items. So our abattoir abhors most of this problem, and the impact of this negligence is one of the major causes of all these problems we see out here now.
All right, thank you, sir. You've really explained, how poor food safety practices, can have a huge detrimental effect on the citizens. But in what ways can we, support, veterinarians, veterinary doctors, healthcare professionals, and everybody in the food value chain, for them to perform their roles better and reduce, the high burden of disease caused by poor food practices in Nigeria?
Yeah, it's simple. The first thing is to create a policy that makes veterinary practice easier and conducive. It has gone so bad that I'm not sure anybody will rejoice if they are trying to gain admission to university to study veterinary medicine, because their roles are being subdued and nobody is really creating demand for what they studied. Once we have a policy that makes veterinary practice more conducive, I'm not sure if vet doctor is well enabled to actually be in an abattoir and stop a meat that has been slaughtered from being the sales of meat that has been slaughtered. And it's logical. You see a man holding the knife and all of that he has used to slaughter the meat and all of that. And you know that this meat is not safe for consumption. This preparation is not safe. I'm not sure we have our policy that actually strengthen those people with the backing of some security agent to ensure that they enforce all of these laws and ensure that all these food items, all these meats, all these meat that have been slaughtered and the preparation that have been done in a place that are not air, where we have a lot of flies and access to a lot of microbes that could be dangerous to our health. There are no laws that really make the veterinary practice very conducive for people that are doing it. The conduciveness has a lot to do with the remuneration, but remuneration is even the least. It's even to ensure that these people feel safe to say the truth. And also that confidence of beyond saying the truth to what has to be done, are people actually going to implement the truth, which is this meat is not safe for consumption. Are we actually sure that such meat will actually not be used for consumption? And this place where the meat is sold is actually too close to the unguarded drainage or sewage system. Are we sure that such abattoir will actually be closed pending when the right thing will be done? So I think it's the most important thing is to create a very safe and healthy policy that makes the practice conducive and easy for people that studied it and the meat inspection officer at large. Over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olaiya. You've really provided us with a whole lot of information and knowledge. The audience, I bet we all enjoyed this discussion. It has been entertaining and insightful, to say the least.
You can learn more about the NESG's advocacy on food and drug safety by visiting www.nesgroup.org/Foodorado. You can also listen to other interesting conversations by visiting www.nesgroup.org/podcast.
Thank you for your time. Hope to see you next time.